Okay. So, riveting stuff. I know. But I actually found this one to be pretty awesome because there's a lot of different facets if you look at it. With last week, what did we do? We broke down the actual the 5 korban, right? We broke down the 5 offering, and when we did that, what did y'all get out of it? I mean, what did y'all see out of that, the best? I mean, what was that best picture this time of reading through it, okay? Because, I mean, every time you get something a little bit different, but this time of reading through it, what was the best picture for you of actually looking at it?
Okay, the 3 of the offerings were voluntary, and 2 of them were required. Also, a lot of the offerings were eaten by the whole group, by the priest, the one who brought it, making his friends with him, and they were eating before God. And supposedly this is a meal with God that you're having.
Okay.
It's
All right.
kind of like a picnic.
Sure. Oh, okay.
And, but
Quite a holy picnic, but yeah.
A formal type picnic.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's definitely one a black tie event. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else get anything from just? I'm talking about last week's portion when we went through the different ones.
I think we talked about the fact that it took an awful lot of
Time, money, and everything
money,
else.
and effort to
Right.
to pay for your sins.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that wasn't God's plan in the beginning. It was that we don't sin.
Sure.
So
Sure.
It's a deterrent and it's a way of honoring God.
Okay, so it acts as a deterrent, but it's also it's a bigger fine than we think of nowadays. Who nowadays, when we think of sin, we think of, oh, God's going to forgive me. God, give me forgiveness. Okay, oh, I'm good. You know, I mean, that's kind of the mindset now, but
Exactly.
but that's definitely not what we saw as far as what the offerings were. And if we are to relate ourselves to that offering, when we are going to give a sin offering in our own life today, and we do our related actually that way, what happens is that it really means a lot more. There's a lot more weight to it. So, okay. Anybody else have anything about last week?
On our involvement, if he just wanted the sweet smell of the aroma, and then if it was our sin, he just didn't send us to the corner upstairs to our room.
Right. Right.
He wanted involvement.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a hands-on event, you know, and it wasn't something you could do alone. It wasn't. There was never a one person.
Instead, it always involves other people.
Right, and I mean, because even look at the main priest. What happened when the head priest sinned? It was an entire congregation event.
Well, I think all of them, they're public. This
Sure.
is the most public place in the whole village.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's every eye is on that temple. So
Right.
no matter what you're bringing, it's in front of the whole congregation.
Right. And so everyone knows your little dirty secrets. And so you got the center of the camp, okay, and let's do it this way. South, west, east. All right? And we got, this is the door, basically. There's Dill and Dill. Everybody good with that? My wife's not drawing it, so it's this simple. So, you've got something, and I'm not going to go into numbers, I'm just saying, you've got something to the effect of 2.5 million people floating around this tabernacle. This absolutely was the center hub of everything. That's where all the information was given. Because who was given the information first off?
Priest.
Okay.
High priest.
Came from God, went to Moses, and then the high priest. Because the high priest actually was the one that was dishing out the instructions. Okay? And then the other priests were dishing out the instructions. And then Moses goes off seeing what happens, and then he's still dishing out the instructions. Okay? Now, what happens when God's glory fills the tabernacle?
Can't nobody go in.
Can't nobody go in. But now, does Moses have to go up the mountain to get the information? No. No more. I think he was kind of happy about that. But anyway, so we look at this, and we look at this picture, and you're right. Everyone knew everybody's dirty laundry at this point.
You know what, although I wouldn't even look at it as dirty laundry, what they knew was you were actually coming to atone.
Sure.
I think they knew the dirty laundry is always known out here. But now they actually knew you were coming to pay,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
more so. I think.
I'll look at that. Now getting back to this portion. Okay, so we've got sacrifice going to happen here. And now, was it a little sacrifice? No, it was a lot of sacrifices that were going to happen here. So, if that's the case, God has called this place right here, where these animals are going to be sacrificed, what? Most holy. Okay? Inside of these 4 walls, or curtains, is what? Well, it's most holy.
Right.
Holy of Holies is back here, right? But I'm making a point. Sorry, I'm not very fast at this. Okay. Most holy place, right? What's that?
Unclean,
A holy place.
yeah. But it's the only.
It's outside the camp, but it's a clean, holy place. What about the rest of this place? Let me think about it. You got the most holy place.
Like pretty unclean.
No, it's holy because the Lord walks among them.
Okay. Now, this is where it gets interesting to look at, okay? This is why I brought this up. Because what happened when the priest, and we'll get to that here in a second. What happened when the priest takes the ashes out of the altar? He has to takes it outside the camp to the clean place. But here's the thing that's interesting. Why? What is he wearing when he's inside here?
Priestly robes.
He's wearing his priestly robes. Why? Now here's the why. Why?
Because it has to be sanctified.
Because he's clean and he's touching the altar. He's going to touch the altar. What happens when you touch the altar?
You become holy.
But you also first have to be what to touch the altar? That's right. So here's the catch-22. He's like, okay, well, I got to be doing this right. So he's wearing his priestly garments. He takes the ashes out of the altar. He sets them right next to it. And then he goes, I got to go make a change of clothes. Why is he making a change of clothes if he's going to another clean place? It's because he has to go through something that's not, I'm not going to say not clean, but it's not holy. It's not consecrated. Because the camp's never consecrated.
Right.
The temple's consecrated, the tabernacle's consecrated, and this place is. That's the only two. Okay? Because that's what I'm just saying though. God does walk amongst the camp, and that's why it's important that we don't defecate inside the camp. Right? We have to go outside the camp to do that, right? No, it's because we know that the Lord is going to be walking amongst us, right? So it has to stay clean, but is it ever consecrated? Nope. So, the priests have to stay in their garments at all times when they're inside what? The holy place. That's right. When they're in the tabernacle, they have to be in their garments. Do you think that was for show?
No.
No, it was part of their consecration, and we'll get to that. So anyway, I'm saying this is what I was picking up this time. And like I said, I've sped through this for the last 5 years. This time it was a lot more in depth because there's more meaning to it to me now. There's every time we look at an actual burnt offering, you know, these things weren't common. So first off, the altar itself. Once God lights the altar, is he thinking anybody else needs to start a fire on that thing? That's right. Why? I ask the why question a lot. I've got a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old, and I'm getting why constantly, right? But I'm asking the why questions now because we don't think about why. We just go, well, God said so. Well, God said so. That's a good reason. I'm not going to say it's not, because I use that reason with my kids. It's like, well, I said so. You know, they have to listen to that. But my question goes to why, because we don't go any further than that. Is God's word good enough? Yes, absolutely. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it's not. But what I am going to say is that if we don't start getting some understanding of why he put it in place, we won't keep doing it. Because I can only tell Christopher, because I said so, not to touch the stove for so long. And he's going to then touch the stove. He just is. Most kids do. Why? I did. I mean, I've got cuts and bruises and scars all over my hands because it was like, well, why? I told you not to. Okay. They're not looking. I mean, that's the way we do things. So if we don't start diving into the why God said some of this stuff, more than just he said so, we won't keep doing it. Every generation of the Israel has shown that. If we don't start getting some understanding of why he's saying it, then we won't keep doing it. So we look at continual burning. This is the very first thing in this portion. The continual burning. God said he's going to light this fire. Okay? Does he have a specific fire? Absolutely. What happened when somebody else lit their own fire? They died. It wasn't even, it was, okay, here, let me light that. No, he didn't give them a warning. There was no warning shot there. It was, boom, dead. They got lit, that's right. So I'm just saying, though.
Can I go back to what you just said?
Sure.
This is real bad. When the Father is in his heavenly kingdom, Yeshua, he took off his priestly garments, came to another clean place in common clothes.
Right.
That's a beautiful picture of Yeshua coming to earth, performing the sacrifice, and then going back and putting on
As a priest.
as a priest.
I mean, yeah, you're right. Because what was his role?
He was the high priest.
That's right.
He is that.
And he took off his priestly garments, became a common.
I'm loving it.
And walked among us.
And then he lived among us, the people. His ashes were not outside the temple, in the place. It's a beautiful picture.
And what happened every time somebody touched him?
They became holy.
They became holy.
Or healed.
Or healed. Well, I think that was kind of that completion.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think an unhealed person could become holy. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, if we're talking about even the sacrifices themselves couldn't have blemish, what about the people? Okay? We know people got bumps and bruises and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm just start to look at that. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to go back to a little further with one of your comments.
Okay.
Everybody knew each other's, stuff.
Oh, yeah, dirty
When
laundry.
you picture how many people that is, it's bigger than Dallas people, bigger than Dallas and Fort Worth people. Millions of people. So I just kind of wanted to put that
And a
in.
lot less
It's not like
area.
everybody's seeing all of this. It's not a common thing for them to even see the priest, what's doing.
You're right.
And all of that. I mean, that's a lot.
You're right. And when it says that the whole congregation gathered,
Yeah.
At the
I can't
doorway.
even comprehend that.
I'm not seeing those kind of numbers in my head. I mean, the boys have been watching a lot of The Prince of Egypt, and whatever you care about that movie, I don't care. I'm just saying, we let them watch a couple of things, and that's it. So that's one they get to watch, especially right now around Passover. So I love the very end scene. Moses is standing on the mountain, and he's standing on top of Sinai coming down with the 2 tablets. And, the calf really hadn't happened yet or whatever, but he's looking out on just the sea of people. And I know it's a cartoon, but that's the best image that I can even gather of that kind of a multitude.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
So,
What, is there any group from Olympics to professional football games to anything where we have that big a gathering of people that will be anywhere near close to this?
nope, not 2.5 million.
Closest you might get would be the Vatican.
And how many was that?
That, those people circling that.
Just a little over a million.
The only other thing I can tell you is that concerts. I've been to a concert with 500,000 people.
Yeah.
Protest the White House.
Protests at the White House. Yeah, hey. Martin Luther King only drew a crowd of about 500,000. So, I'm just saying, we get this picture of those things of, a fleeting thought. The other day, I was in Albuquerque, and we had worked about 12 and a half hours, and we were dog tired, got back to the hotel, but it was daylight, so it was real hard to go to sleep. And so we're like, we'll just turn on the boob tube and go to sleep right with that. Well, Forrest Gump was on, and once again, whatever you think about that movie, I don't really care. I'm just letting you know, it was on the TV, and that scene where he's standing on the stage at that protest, and that sea of people, that's the only thing that even comes close to my mind. And I know that wasn't even, I think at most the war protest there in Washington ever got to was 750,000. And that was the most, okay? But there again, we're talking about 2.5 million people, and they all gathered.
And how did they hear?
They didn't.
It's like everybody in Texas coming to
I mean,
Dallas.
It's not even, a lot of times it's not even about hearing, it's about being there.
Well, okay, I'm going to
You mean
I'm
in
gonna
this
have a different
instance?
opinion
You mean
on
in
that.
this instance?
What's interesting is Josephus reported in his writings that at the time of Passover, Yeshua gave himself up. There's 2 to 2.5 million people present there.
Right.
Isn't that coincidence?
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and here's the thing. If every year at Passover, and Shavuot, and Tabernacles, everyone's supposed to come up and gather in Jerusalem, think about that as far as the future to come, okay?
Yeah, so it makes you wonder, how did these guys get away with crucifying him?
Well,
we know how
it was God's plan.
Yeah.
But it was all ordained. But that there again, let's look at the magnitude of the numbers. Okay? Jerusalem, how many people have been to Jerusalem? Okay, we've got a few. How big is that place?
It's not very big. It's not very big.
Not very big, right? And in fact, I was just going through Isaiah and Jeremiah. And in Isaiah and Jeremiah, it talks about how the number of children that come back and return, they're going to need more space.
And they'll have it.
It says they're going to need more space, and everybody that is of that generation is going to go, who are these people? Who raised them? And they're their own kids. Anyway, it was something that tied up in my head. But when we're looking at those numbers and we're looking at this being the picture of this time, and then we go to Jerusalem, and Jerusalem has a what? Temple.
Temple.
David, all right, David has a tabernacle there, and then Solomon built a temple there, okay? And then it's established. God sets his name where?
In Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem. Is it ever to be removed? No. That's right. It can't be. No. Here's the thing. This is a picture of what is going on at this time, right? It's a picture for what David is supposed to see, right? It's a picture for what Solomon is supposed to build, right? Where are they getting this from? The heavenly tabernacle. So if we have a heavenly tabernacle picture, does anybody have one? I don't. I just have a similitude.
Right there.
I have just a similitude of what was given, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's the Holy of Holies, where is God's throne, right? And then we know that the ministering is going on in here. And anyway, I'm not trying to really dive into too much of that. I just want you to start really thinking of 2.5 million people standing around this thing. And it is that, dirty laundry, or just coming to meet with God. Because was airing your dirty laundry and atoning for your dirty laundry, was that the only thing you did it for? No, it was to go meet with God. So all these people have this opportunity to go meet with God. That's pretty darn cool. He's sitting in your camp. I'm going to go meet with him as often as I can. We take for granted too much the importance and the power of the creator of the universe. If he's in the midst of the camp, I'm going to want to be in his presence. Anybody else with me? No. Right, okay. So now let's go back to the offerings, okay? Yes, sir.
Can I throw one thing in?
Yes.
Can I show up the verse in Psalms that God showed me this week?
Okay.
Which everybody in their mind, from the New Testament, Yeshua is having passed his last Passover with his disciples. Now turning to Psalms 116.
Psalms 116.
And we're going to start in 12. And then now picture in your mind a city full of 2 million people. They're in the upper room, as they call it, of the temple. And Yeshua raises the cup. And he says in verse 12, how can I repay the Lord for all his goodness? I will lift up the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in presence of all these people. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. O Lord, truly I am your servant. I am your servant, the son, and in 9 is the verse, your faithful son. O Lord, truly I am your servant. I will sacrifice a thank offering to you and call on the name of the Lord, and I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people, in the courts of the house of the Lord, in your midst, O Jerusalem. You know.
Praise ye the Lord.
I mean, I see this. He's standing over his disciples saying, I'm going to do this because I made this vow.
Right. Right. And
And he's that offering
right. He's that one.
that we're talking about.
Right. So let's go back to the fire that consumes these offerings. It's from the Lord. Okay? To be burning continually. Okay? Why is it to never go out? Could God restart it? I'm just asking. Anybody else in here think God has a lighter in his pocket? He can take care of that, right?
It's called light his mouth. Why not?
Right.
You don't even have to
Right.
apply
He can take care of that if it did go out. Why? Why is it not to go out? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was reading in a commentary, on the internet, this group, and it says an unceasing state of preparation and readiness.
Amen. That's where I was going, okay? It was because it was on the priest to always be working on it. They always had to be attending it. Always. Their focus had to be on the fire. All right? This is their power source, okay? They always have to be cutting, getting, putting, right? Always. If it ever goes out, what happens?
God doesn't relight it.
That's right.
The presence of the Lord is gone.
It leaves the camp. That was something that they did take serious.
And that's what happened in Ezekiel.
Right.
They let the fire go.
And they didn't want to be without God's presence. So they are in this preparation stage, and they're gathering all the wood, and they're putting in all the wood, and they're making sure that it's just right. Was there actual process to putting the wood on the altar? Yes. Because if you look back at Abraham, he knew the order of the wood. Right? Do you think it was probably the same order? I imagine. That's right. So they always had to be working on that. So now we've gone to that. All right, that's where I was heading next. All right. Sorry, I'm a little slow thinking today, but it's important that it never goes out because they've always got to be focused on God's presence, God's presence, God's presence, God's presence. Even if they screwed up, they still wanted to be what? In God's presence, right? Is that what Adam did or not? Adam did, when he screwed up, he didn't want to be in God's presence, right? He went and hid from himself from him. But even these priests, okay, which they did screw up, and we know they did, because they died, the things happened to them, they had to atone for sin, they had to do all those kind of things, but they never wanted to be out of the presence of the Lord. Okay? So, now that we're talking about the fire, what is the fire? The fire represents light, right? Okay. What is this camp being to the rest of the nations at its time?
A light to the nations.
Light to the nations. Why? It's making them jealous. Why? Because their God actually is in their midst all the time. It's not a thing where their God can go sleep a nap off, or it's on his holy mountain somewhere. We don't know where that is. We have to conjure him up. No, he's always here. So they are being that light unto the world. Another picture for us, maybe? Anyway. Okay. The perpetual portion for Aaron's sons, so the meat offering. Okay. Was it a whole lot that they got?
10%.
Was it a whole lot that they got?
From each sacrifice or period?
Was it a whole lot that they got? Like the way I'm doing that, Jim? I would say it's a lot. 10% doesn't seem like a whole lot. 2.5 million people. One tribe has a little portion of it that is actually the priests. Right? I would say it was a lot. Okay? It's a river of blood. Absolutely. But was the blood unclean? No. To eat, yes. Not to touch. Okay? There's a difference there. And I found this interesting too. Were the carcasses unclean?
Gave them the skins.
Nope.
Gave Aaron's sons the skins.
That's right. Their carcasses weren't unclean. Why?
Clothes.
They were clean animals to begin with.
Okay. I think it goes more to, though, their purpose. I mean, you're right. I see that they were clean animals because they couldn't have sacrificed anything unclean, obviously, on the altar.
But it was about the blood.
But it was about the blood, right? That's what it comes down to, because that's what their purpose was. We're going to walk through the consecration steps of the actual priests here in a minute, and they had to have blood actually applied to their ear, applied to their right thumb, applied to their toe. They actually had to have that placed on their body and then sprinkled on their clothes. And I don't think it was just like you're done. I think it was pretty... Right. Oh, right. Why the right side? Why the right ear? Why the right thumb? Why the right toe?